The U.S. Supreme Court refused to allow President Donald Trump to immediately oust Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook while she sues to keep her job, dealing a setback to his efforts to exert more control over the central bank. Elliot Stein joins us here. He was doing great in his career, Stanford undergrad. Then he made a fateful decision, a mistake. He said, I'm going to go to law school. So he went to law school, and he's been paying for it ever since. But he is our go-to guy about all this litigation stuff here. Elliot, what do you make of this Supreme Court ruling here?
So, I think it's really interesting. They sort of punted on the decision because they want to hear oral argument in January and then decide. But I think what's really notable is that in every other case that's similar to this, where President Trump has fired the heads of an agency, and those cases then went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court always has ruled immediately that the president can remove those people pending the litigation. Here, it's very clear that they're treating the Federal Reserve differently.
They're treating the Federal Reserve differently, and I'm looking at the order, the written order, and it's very, very short. It's very terse. I mean, just looking at it, I see a lot of Latin words here as well, which I don't understand. But what does it mean that they're looking for amici curiae and any supplemental briefs responding to amici? What does that mean?
Yeah, so those are what we call amicus briefs. Some people pronounce it amicus briefs.
I like your pronunciation so much better.
I was doing it in Italian, but okay.
Yeah, that was pretty good, but that's not as good as my Latin. Those are just friend of the court briefs. And we spoke about it a few days ago, actually, where non-parties, but people who are interested in the case can provide written arguments to the court to give sort of context as to why these issues are important. It doesn't have to necessarily be legal arguments. It can sort of just be, why this is such an important issue for different stakeholders that aren't directly involved in the litigation, but maybe indirectly impacted.
Is there a consensus within the legal community, Elliot, about how the Supreme Court may ultimately rule here? Is this something, again, you mentioned that President Trump has had some leeway in removing other heads of agencies. What's so different about the Fed and how it might go?
Sure. Well, the issue usually comes down to whether these agencies are part of the executive branch, because under Article 2 of the Constitution, the president has control of the entire executive branch. And so when these other cases have come up, that's what the court looked at, and most of these agencies traditionally do fall under the executive branch. They issue rules, they have enforcement action capabilities, but the Fed historically has been different because monetary policy really is a congressional responsibility that they have delegated. And so even the Trump administration early on made a distinction between the Fed's monetary policy authority and its rulemaking and regulatory authority. And the regulatory side of things may fall under the executive branch, but the monetary policy historically doesn't. And the Supreme Court in May also made that distinction because it said the Federal Reserve is a unique institution. It has a unique structure, and it's almost quasi-private. Those were the words that the Supreme Court said, which suggests that it doesn't really view it as an as an executive agency.
Elliot, we know the president doesn't like to take no for an answer, and he's essentially getting a no for now. Does he have any recourse?
Well, the Justice Department will be in the Supreme Court in January per this order, arguing.
But before then, before the January oral arguments begin?
No, there's not much he can do. He has to live with this, and the government will present its arguments in January.
So is it this individual, is she representing herself, Lisa Cook? Is she representing herself, or is she being represented by the Federal Reserve?
No, she's got lawyers who represent her in her
as an individual,
in her individual capacity. Because, and it's interesting you ask that, because her lawsuit actually names the Federal Reserve Board and the other governors as defendants, and the reason she did that is because we saw it with the lower court orders. The lower court orders forced the Federal Reserve Board not to take any action with respect to the president's termination letter. So that's why they had to name the other Fed governors as defendants as well.
So Lisa Cook's lawyer, her personal lawyer, is Abby Lowell, who is very prominent in Washington. He has defended, it feels like, everyone in Washington, D.C. Right. Tell us a little bit about, his background and what he brings to an oral argument before the Supreme Court.
Yeah, well, actually, he may not even be the lawyer arguing in the Supreme Court because another notable thing that happened when this case reached the Supreme Court is that Lisa Cook's side on her papers, they retained Paul Clement, who is one of the most notable and probably one of the foremost Supreme Court advocates of our generation. Wow. And traditionally, he has served under Republican administrations and argued for conservative causes. So the fact that he, in this case, is representing Lisa Cook against the Trump administration, I think is really notable, and I would expect him to be the one arguing in January.
God, that would be intimidating. Going up in front of the Supreme Court and then arguing against the U.S. government. That would be intimidating.
Well, he used to be on the government side, right? He used to be, I believe he was the Solicitor General for a while under Republican administration.
Under the George W. Bush administration. Thank you, Wikipedia.
Okay. Yes, exactly right.
Tom Keene's encyclopedia.
Yeah, exactly. Elliot Stein, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. It's such a benefit for us at short notice. We say we need a really smart voice on breaking news. And the dude's one floor down from where we are. How lucky are we?
Wait, so how do I pronounce it? Amici or Amici Curie?
I go amicus.
I say amicus or amici.
Amici, okay.
See, but, potato.
I had 8 years of Catholic school. I think I'm the aficionado in Latin.
I think you are, yeah.
You didn't take Latin, though, did you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
well, you should know.
I know. Well, the only thing I know about Latin is you just pronounce every single letter as you see it, and then you can speak it just fine. So you walk into any church
you want to
in Rome,
conjugate some
no
verbs
one says it. No one speaks it.
Yeah, it's a dead language. But they made us learn it, and I think we're all the better for it. S&P 500 off 5 points. We'll have more coming up. This is Bloomberg. Good morning.